Alright, we got ready for Critical Drinking. Let's go follow, guys. Here we go.
Every once in a while, I'll stumble on a news article so brain-meltingly, soul-crushingly stupid that the only socially acceptable response is such was the case yesterday with this absolute corker from Variety, that always reliable bastion of respectable, impartial journalism. Disney's Boy Trouble. Studio seeks original IP to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way.
Are you serious?
Oh, really? Tell me, why would you have to do something like that? I mean, you've spent years telling us that men are irrelevant now, that nobody needs or wants those mean, stinky boys polluting culture with their toxic masculinity, that male and pale is stale, that the future is female. Why do you care about attracting men to your brand all of a sudden?
Fuck.
And therein lies the rub, dear viewer. You might utterly despise men and everything they represent, but when it comes to that increasingly uncomfortable meeting with the accountants every few months, well, it turns out that you kind of need them. Especially young men, who seem to be quite a powerful demographic these days. Let's see what else this stunning and brave article has to say, shall we? Numerous studies show that Gen Z men in particular are a lonely, gaming-obsessed group who were hampered in their formative years by COVID-19 lockdowns.
Oh, come on!
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there before this journalistic retardation goes any further. Let's be clear about one thing. Young men were not hampered in their formative years by the lockdowns, or the patriarchy, or global warming, or social injustice, or any of the other bullshit excuses you're gonna try to throw in to obfuscate the truth. They were hampered by an entertainment media complex that spent most of the past decade systematically trying to obliterate them from modern culture. They've been berated, insulted, deconstructed, mocked, lectured, misrepresented, gaslit into believing their every natural instinct was wrong and evil, and simultaneously labelled as useless and irrelevant, but also somehow the cause of every negative thing that ever happens in the world, depending on which explanation is most expedient.
I'm so fucking tired. I thought I just needed a night's sleep, but it's more than that.
And every single time they've dared to defend themselves or push back in this completely one-sided war, they've been dismissed as sexist, misogynistic idiots and bullied or attacked into silence. Is it really that much of a surprise that after all of this, after realising the deck is so hopelessly stacked against them that not only can they never be allowed to win, but they'll be actively punished for even trying in the first place, they finally decided, fuck it, I'm just not playing anymore. And they hit back with the most powerful weapon left in their arsenal, their wallets. If companies like Disney decide to use their platform to beat young men over the head with the message that everything male is inherently bad, then I guess young men just won't watch their stuff anymore. It's not exactly rocket science, but holy fuck, this article and others like it will explore every possible explanation except the simplest and most obvious one. And I think we know why. It actually kind of reminds me of all those articles cropping up on feminist websites these days decrying the lack of male attention after those very same sites spent years complaining about men being too forward, too assertive, too interested, too creepy, and gosh darn it, why can't they just leave us all alone? Gee, I wonder why they're not interested in dating anymore. It's a total mystery to me too, ladies. The irony is that Disney already had access to some of the biggest and most successful male-focused brands in history. And yes, both Star Wars and Marvel were decidedly male brands. That doesn't mean the ladies couldn't enjoy them too, and many did in fact, but if I had to choose a gender most likely to gravitate towards a franchise about space battles, adventure, ships and technology, heroism and epic struggles for the fate of the universe, yeah, it's gonna be men. And that right there is perfectly okay. Men are allowed to have stuff that they like, and a lot of the time, that stuff is going to be quite different from what women like. The problem is that only one side is ever expected to compromise and make concessions to accommodate the other, and I'll give you a little hint here. It's not women. Like, could you imagine for 1 second if they did a reboot of Sex and the City? Sorry, wait, another reboot. Only this time half the female characters were gender swapped, the glamour and sophistication of the New York social scene was replaced with muscle cars and guns and girls in bikinis, and every episode had to include some tedious subtext about how difficult modern life is for men to navigate. I don't think it would go down very well. But there seems to be this weird cultural taboo around the idea of male-focused anything now, like catering specifically to men as a demographic is some moral crime that has to be addressed and corrected, instead of a smart and logical business decision from a company that should be all about giving the customer what they want. In the case of those male-oriented franchise that used to be a license to print money because they used to understand their customers, the problem wasn't just the clunky attempts to court a female audience with a sudden influx of pandering, poorly written girl bosses who could magically do anything and were always right about everything. Even women hated that shit because they were more than smart enough to see right through it. No, the bigger problem was the active sabotage, marginalization, destruction, and outright pussification of the male characters to make way for them. I've been over this kind of thing a million times before, so I'm not going to bore you with all the examples like Han, Luke, Indiana Jones, Thor, Kylo Ren, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Nick Fury, and about 100 others I could name. The list of cultural assassinations is frankly mind-boggling at this point. The point though is that instead of becoming more accessible to women, these franchises instead became increasingly hostile towards men, especially young and impressionable men who could really use some positive role models to aspire to. Instead they found themselves getting lectured, berated and disrespected by a studio that seemed to actively hate them. And that's the funny thing about young men, you see. They can and often do put up with a lot of shit in their daily lives, but the one thing they won't put up with is disrespect, especially from a fucking company that wants them to part with their hard-earned money for their privilege. Add all these factors together and you get a conclusion so simple and obvious that I can't believe I'm even having to say it, but here we are. When you decide to treat half your audience as the enemy, that's exactly what you turn them into. You really do get what you fucking deserve, and in this case, Disney deserves to lose half their audience because they gave them absolutely no reason to stick around. But you know what? Rather than signing off with some smarmy little fuck you, I want to pull something positive out of this situation because it seems like even Disney are beginning to acknowledge how badly they've done wrong. Yeah, the admission's only been forced grudgingly out of them by sheer financial necessity, but it's something at least. And never let it be said that the drinker doesn't offer a helping hand to those in need. So if I could offer a few pieces of advice, speaking as someone of the male persuasion here, I'd say they have to come to terms with a few realities about their situation. The first reality is that not everything you make can appeal to everyone, and nor should you try. Movies like Barbie and Top Gun Maverick are proof that when you target a specific audience and give them exactly what they want without trying to dilute it down in the hopes of appealing to an even bigger market, you can and will make an absolute fortune. The second reality is that any project revolving around adventure, science fiction, action, or technology, like say, I don't know, Star Wars and Marvel, is probably gonna skew male. I don't know what to tell you, man, but men and women tend to be interested in different things, and no amount of social conditioning or deconstruction is ever gonna change that. And if they're your two biggest franchises that you probably want to resurrect and get profitable again, then you're gonna have to accept that your primary demographic is men, and cater the content accordingly. The third reality is that you need to bring back masculine heroes if you want to get a male audience back. And I'm not talking about the safe, feminized, corporate-approved Pedro Pascal brand of masculinity that's basically just a woman with a moustache, but the actual male archetype of masculinity that's been practically outlawed in modern media. Men who are smart, capable, assertive, confident, complex, and maybe even a bit dangerous, who don't resort to verbal diarrhea or fold like a house of cards the moment a woman challenges them on something. Those are the kinds of characters that men have been drawn to for decades, and guess what? They still are. And no amount of guilt tripping or toxic masculinity bullshit is ever going to change that. The fourth and final reality is that everyone, men and women both, are fucking sick of girl bosses. They are, without a doubt, one of the most obnoxious products of modern culture. They've ruined practically everything they've been crowbarred into, and they have to go. That doesn't mean for 1 second that you can't have intelligent, complex, capable, and well-written female characters that push and rival their male counterparts. In fact, you absolutely should. But the days of one-sided contests where women always have to win to put men in their place, or invincible power fantasies that are either the writer's revenge fanfiction or walking inferiority complexes are well and truly over. Women don't relate to them, and men, particularly young men that have been force-fed a diet of this crap for most of their lives, are actively repulsed by anything that has them in it. Now, all of this stuff probably seems completely obvious and common sense to you, but fuck me, it feels like common sense is in short supply in Hollywood these days. But I think the big takeaway from all of this is that men as a demographic are not all that difficult to please. Treat them with a bit of respect, give them the things that they enjoy, and you'll be surprised how quickly they come around. On the other hand, ignore and attack them, and well, I think we've seen where that road leads. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
That's a good one. Hey guys, go follow.